The Forbidden City was not merely built. It was envisioned as the beating heart of a divine empire. Commissioned by the Yongle Emperor of the Ming Dynasty in 1406, the Forbidden City rose from the earth of Beijing with the purpose of reshaping not just geography, but cosmic order itself. In just 14 years, over 1 million workers constructed what would become the largest imperial palace on earth. But beneath the bricks and golden tiles lay something more, a message. Every inch of the city was designed to declare power, exclusivity, and control, not just over territory, but over time, tradition, and heaven itself. Its layout followed strict geomantic principles drawn from Confucian, Taoist, and cosmic belief systems. The palace was placed at the very center of the city, reflecting the emperor's role as the axis between heaven and earth. Each gate, hall, and courtyard was placed with divine purpose, mirroring celestial patterns. The orientation was always due north to south, aligning the emperor's throne with the flow of cosmic energy or qi. The Forbidden City's location was also highly strategic. It was built where the ancient Yuan dynasty palace once stood, which itself aligned with geomantic guidelines. But Yongle didn't merely reuse ground. He redefined it. The very act of moving the capital from Nanjing to Beijing was a statement of ideological and strategic conquest. From the outside, the city projected strength and exclusion. Massive red walls nearly 10 meters high surrounded the rectangular complex. A wide moat encircled it like a ceremonial necklace. Entry was not just restricted, it was nearly impossible for commoners. For centuries, most people in China never even glimpsed its golden roofs, let alone set foot inside. Only a select few, royals, concubines, eunuchs, guards, scholars, were allowed inside. Even high-ranking officials needed imperial permission to cross specific thresholds. And once you were inside, your entire world changed. The Forbidden City had its own rhythms, laws, and rules, a kingdom within a kingdom. The materials used in construction were as symbolic as the design. Yellow roof tiles were reserved for the emperor alone, representing his exclusive link to the heavens. Red walls symbolized happiness and good fortune, but they also radiated an unmistakable message of control and surveillance. Even the trees planted within the palace were chosen with intention. Ancient cypress trees and hardy pines signified longevity, strength, and watchfulness. Some of these trees, planted centuries ago, still whisper with secrets today. But perhaps the most powerful symbol of all was the throne room itself, the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Built on a triple marble terrace, it rises like a mountain above the courtyards, crowned with an imperial roof ridge that could be seen from miles away. It was here that the emperor appeared as the son of heaven, and where subjects prostrated themselves in absolute silence. And yet, despite all this grandeur, the Forbidden City was also a place of shadows. Many emperors lived in deep isolation within its walls. Surrounded by rituals, spies, and suspicion, they sometimes became prisoners in their own paradise. From the very beginning, the Forbidden City was as much about hiding as it was about ruling. Thus begins our journey into a palace of power, beauty, fear, and mystery. The Forbidden City wasn't just the center of an empire. It was a fortress of secrets, carefully designed to guard not just the emperor's body, but the very idea of empire itself. The Forbidden City was not merely built to house an emperor. It was a deliberate message carved in stone and shaped in wood. Every structure, down to the smallest decorative beam or painted tile, was designed to communicate political order, divine legitimacy, and philosophical ideals. To the trained eye, the palace wasn't just a residence. It was a living manuscript, written in architecture. The central axis of the Forbidden City runs north to south and is anchored by 3 main halls: the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the Hall of Central Harmony, and the Hall of Preserving Harmony. Each of these names reflects Confucian ideals of balance, order, and moral leadership. Their alignment, rigid, symmetrical, elevated, emphasizes the emperor's role as the unshakable center of the cosmos. Symmetry dominated every aspect of design. In traditional Chinese thought, symmetry represented harmony with the universe. Buildings were paired, Courtyards mirrored one another, and even the number of roof tiles followed cosmic numerology. The use of odd numbers in stair steps and roof ridges was intentional. Odd numbers were considered more yang, or masculine and imperial. The buildings were made primarily of wood, an element associated with life and growth in Chinese philosophy. Wooden columns, often lacquered red and topped with elaborate brackets, held up multi-tiered roofs shaped like spreading wings. The sweeping eaves were not just aesthetic. They guided rainwater away from the foundations and symbolized protection over the empire. The number 9, reserved for the emperor, was sacred. The gates had 9 rows of 9 studs, and the Palace of Heavenly Purity had 9,999 rooms, one short of heaven's perfect 10,000. This symbolism signified that the emperor was nearly divine, but still below the heavens, immense in power, yet tethered to the cosmos. Colors carried enormous meaning. Yellow, the emperor's exclusive color, dominated roof tiles, imperial garments, and official seals. Red, the color of walls and pillars, represented happiness, life, and control. Blue was reserved for elements of heaven. Every hue was chosen with political calculation, reinforcing hierarchy at every level. Even the roof creatures held meaning. Rows of small mythical beasts perched on the ridges of buildings, each symbolizing protection or authority. The more creatures a building had, the higher its importance. Only the Hall of Supreme Harmony bore all 10 beasts, a privilege granted to no other structure. The placement of rooms reflected Confucian values. The outer court, where emperors met officials, was built in the southern portion, associated with the public realm and masculine energy. The inner court, where the emperor lived with his family, was to the north, a more private and feminine space. Movement through the palace mirrored a journey from duty to rest, from public performance to private life. The Forbidden City was also a moral compass. Carved stone paths symbolized the emperor's way. Officials could not walk in the central lane, reserved only for the Son of Heaven. Every angle and stair reinforced the idea that power flowed from above, not earned by merit, but granted by divine fate. Even silence was part of the architecture. Thick stone foundations and layered walls muffled echoes. The vast open courtyards created quiet emptiness between halls. Visitors often described an eerie stillness, as if the entire city breathed and controlled rhythm, speaking through form rather than voice. In this sense, the Forbidden City was never static. It was a stage that constantly enacted the emperor's heavenly role. Every stone was positioned to affirm his supremacy. Every color, number, and beast was a verse in the unending song of imperial power. And within its silent geometry, generations learned to bow to an invisible language. Behind the gates of the Forbidden City, beyond the ritualized grandeur, life for those who live within the imperial walls unfolded in layers of protocol, privilege, and quiet intrigue. The emperor was a celestial axis, yet he was also a man, surrounded by courtiers, concubines, servants, and eunuchs whose daily lives were governed by rules as invisible as they were binding. The emperor's daily routine was a ceremony of control. He rose at dawn, perform rites, meet ministers, and review state affairs in the outer court. Meals were pre-tasted to avoid poison, and his words were recorded by scribes. His every step and utterance was symbolic, choreographed to project invincibility. But life for imperial concubines was far less structured by power and more by competition. Dozens of women, sometimes hundreds, were selected from elite families to serve the emperor, ranked by beauty and birth. They lived in designated palaces, often aging in isolation if they failed to catch the emperor's attention. A visit from the emperor could elevate a concubine overnight. Her quarters would be lit with lanterns, her food doubled, her status among rivals enhanced. Yet the opposite was also true. A single misstep or fall from favor could result in exile within the palace, or worse, mysterious disappearance. Eunuchs were the palace's shadow administrators. Castrated in childhood and often recruited from poor families, they were granted rare proximity to the emperor and his court. Some rose to extraordinary power, controlling access to the throne and manipulating court politics from behind silk screens. Despite their influence, eunuchs were distrusted by scholars and ministers. Their loyalty was ambiguous, their ambitions cloaked. Rumors swirled of secret alliances, poisons administered through meals, and hidden documents forged in ink that vanished when dry. Some eunuchs left behind vast fortunes and graves more elaborate than many nobles. Servants of all kinds, maids, cooks, guards, lived in hierarchical layers just as strict as those of royalty. Many never left the palace for decades. Stories tell of women born, raised, and dying inside the crimson walls without ever setting foot outside. Some formed tight-knit networks. Others simply vanished, unnoticed and unrecorded. Yet there were moments of quiet rebellion, secret love affairs, letters passed beneath bowls of rice, songs whispered in dialect forbidden in court. These stories rarely made it to official records, but folklore kept them alive, whispered through generations as ghost tales and cautionary parables. Religion also shaped daily palace life. Buddhist altars stood in private corners, and Taoist talismans hung near bedchambers. The emperor often consulted astrologers before major decisions. For concubines and servants, fortune-tellers and spirit charms were small rebellions against an overwhelming system they could never escape. Behind the gold and marble, life in the Forbidden City was a strange blend of divine pageantry and human fragility. The grandeur hid longing, the rituals masked fear, and the city, though impenetrable from the outside, pulsed with stories of loyalty, betrayal, ambition, and quiet resistance. Stories written not in ink, but in glances and footsteps in the dark. As power shifted between emperors across centuries, so too did the architectural and symbolic importance of various corners within the Forbidden City. Each new reign brought subtle changes, repainted beams, restructured chambers, and renamed halls. But beneath the gilded renovations, some spaces held persistent secrets that even the most powerful dared not disturb. The Hall of Mental Cultivation, for example, became more than just a center for decision-making. In the later Qing dynasty, it evolved into the emperor's personal residence. Its walls absorbed state secrets, whispered confessions, and strategic planning. Ministers waited outside for hours, never knowing what alliances were being forged within. In the same hall, Empress Dowager Cixi once ruled behind a yellow silk screen, issuing imperial orders through male intermediaries. Though she never officially claimed the throne, her control was absolute, and many believe that conspiracies to install or remove emperors originated right in this quiet chamber. Not far away stood the Palace of Tranquil Longevity, initially intended for a retired emperor, but later converted into secretive living quarters for powerful women and advisors. Rumors whisper the hidden tunnels connected to other key areas, allowing discreet movement away from prying eyes. Even the library, the One Yuan Pavilion, was more than a storehouse of wisdom. It held the Siku Quan Shu, one of the largest book collections ever created. But it also contained forbidden texts, span commentaries, and histories rewritten to favor the dynasty. Some say copies of the original versions were hidden within false shelves. In the northwest corner of the palace complex, the lesser-known Pavilion of the Reign of Flowers had long stood abandoned. Some believed it was cursed. Palace records document several attendants falling ill after staying overnight there. Its doors were eventually sealed, though not before servants reported ghostly singing at dusk. Beneath the Hall of Supreme Harmony, ancient legend speaks of a chamber buried beneath the earth. Allegedly filled with bronze mirrors and mystical relics, it was said to reflect a person's soul or show their betrayal. No official excavation has confirmed this, but some guards claim the floor there echoed strangely at night. An enigmatic rock garden, unlike the manicured ones nearby, rests just east of the Imperial Garden. With jagged stones arranged in seemingly random formation, scholars believe it may form a celestial map or encode a family lineage long erased from imperial memory. It has never been publicly studied in depth. In times of political turmoil, secret compartments were said to be used to store incriminating evidence or emergency edicts. During the 1860s, as foreign powers encroached upon Beijing, multiple boxes containing imperial jewels and classified documents were reportedly hidden under flagstones. Some never recovered. And then there were the rooms no longer listed on palace maps, walled off after fires, sealed after deaths, or simply erased by decree. Tour guides today pass by blank walls and boarded doors without mention. But long-serving caretakers remember. They tell of footsteps echoing where no one should walk. The Forbidden City is not simply a museum or monument. It is a palimpsest of memory and erasure, of opulence and omission. Every chamber whispers, but not all voices can still be heard. To explore its hidden rooms is to risk waking stories buried by design, and to glimpse a past shaped just as much by what was concealed as by what was proclaimed. At the heart of the Forbidden City lay not only palatial splendor, but also one of the most closely guarded systems of human intelligence and surveillance in imperial history. Power in the palace was not just about titles. It was about knowing what others didn't. And those who controlled information controlled fate itself. Among the most secretive figures were the eunuchs, who served not only as domestic aides, but often as de facto intelligence agents. Stripped of familial ties, they were seen as loyal only to the emperor. But over time, some amassed enormous influence by collecting secrets whispered in corridors and chambers. The Eastern Depot, established during the Ming Dynasty, acted as a form of secret police. Staffed by eunuchs, it monitored officials, intercepted letters, and conducted interrogations. The depot's reach extended beyond palace walls, and its mere mention sent chills through bureaucrats and generals alike. Emperor Yongle, who commissioned Forbidden City itself, was said to rely heavily on covert surveillance. His reign followed a violent coup, and he knew well the cost of political naivety. He deployed spies to provincial towns and among foreign envoys, but many of his domestic watchers operated inside the palace complex. Letters were never truly private. Couriers were watched, seals could be duplicated, and scrolls sometimes opened under steam to avoid detection. Even trusted family members wrote in code or alluded to matters only indirectly, lest an informant intercept their words and twist their meanings. The imperial consorts and concubines were not spared from this network of suspicion. The empress herself often had a group of attendants loyal only to her, tasked with reporting the movements of rival women and even the emperor. Jealousy and survival blurred together into a constant tension of alliances and betrayal. Foreign visitors, ambassadors, monks, traders, were carefully guided, their movements documented and conversations discreetly recorded. The emperor's court maintained strict control over what they saw, whom they met, and what impressions they took home. It was all part of an elaborate performance designed to veil reality. In the depths of the palace archives lay records of these secrets. Names of informants, intercepted letters, censored edicts, and notes on palace affairs. Many of these documents vanished in wars, or were intentionally burned to hide the past. But a few copies were hidden, waiting for the right eyes to uncover them. The presence of these networks led to a climate of fear and caution. A misstep in speech, a misunderstood look, or an overheard conversation could end a career or a life. Many officials developed the habit of speaking in riddles or metaphors, trusting no one fully, not even their closest allies. The presence of these networks led to a climate of fear and caution. A misstep in speech, a misunderstood look, or an overheard conversation could end a career or a life. Many officials developed the habit of speaking in riddles or metaphors, trusting no one fully, not even their closest allies. While the Forbidden City appeared calm and orderly from the outside, deep within its halls and courtyards, a different kind of struggle unfolded. One that involved manipulation, silent power plays, and invisible hierarchies. Much of this tension centered around the emperor himself, who, though absolute in theory, was often at the mercy of his surroundings. Behind the emperor were layers of influence. Scholars, concubines, military officials, and court astrologers, each vying for his favor and subtly influencing decisions. The emperor had to be a master discernment, often choosing not between right and wrong, but between competing deceptions. Some emperors, like Wanli of the Ming Dynasty, withdrew from public life entirely, disillusioned by the games and manipulations of court life. For years, he refused to attend meetings or sign decrees, allowing internal factions to war quietly among themselves in his name. In this void, eunuchs often filled the gap, acting as gatekeepers to the emperor. They decided which documents he saw, which people could request audiences, and even how much information to reveal. Some eunuchs effectively became the empire's unofficial rulers, manipulating outcomes behind heavy doors. At the same time, Confucian scholars from the civil service opposed such concentrations of unofficial power. These literati believed governance should follow moral and bureaucratic order, not court favoritism. Their frequent clashes with palace insiders created dangerous standoffs that sometimes ended in exile or worse. Inside the inner palace, the Empress Dowager often held immense influence, especially if the emperor was young or weak. As a mother figure and political operator, she could use her authority to position allies and remove rivals. Her quarters became a second power center within the Forbidden City. Meanwhile, military generals, who were rarely allowed to reside inside the city, had their own interests. Though they protected the empire's borders, their loyalty was often suspect. The palace hierarchy kept them at a distance, fearing that ambition and swords were too volatile a mix. To preserve his image as the son of heaven, the emperor relied on rituals and symbolism. Every gesture, word, and garment had meaning. But in truth, this grandeur often masked loneliness and paranoia. Many emperors were surrounded not by allies, but by watchers and whisperers. The architecture of the Forbidden City reinforced these layers of separation. Doors within doors, courtyards within courtyards. It was not just a palace, but a labyrinth. Every step forward required permission. Every passage was guarded, and every official knew proximity to power could both elevate and destroy. In this complex web of influence and suspicion, the emperor was both the spider and the fly, seated at the center of the empire, but never free from the strings that others tugged. The Forbidden City, for all its might and majesty, was a golden cage, and its master was often its most careful prisoner. As dynasties rose and fell, the Forbidden City remained a constant, its red walls and golden roofs absorbing centuries of secrets. But some of the most astonishing tales came not from the rulers, but from the lesser-known residents who lived in the palace's shadows, the spies, assassins, and invisible agents of the court. Court espionage was a quiet art, honed over generations. Information was power, and those who controlled it could shape decisions, manipulate rivals, or even topple powerful families. In the Forbidden City, whispers could cut deeper than swords, and a secret could shift the course of a reign. Many of these spies were recruited from the ranks of palace servants or eunuchs. Their invisibility made them dangerous, always present, rarely noticed. Some were trained in the art of listening, others in deception. They worked for high ministers, imperial consorts, or secret police, each with their own agenda. Assassination was rarer but not unknown. Though public executions were dramatic, palace killings were discreet. Poison in wine, a fatal misstep down the stairs, or sudden illness that no physician could cure. Records were scrubbed, names forgotten, and the silence enforced. The Eastern Depot, an imperial spy agency under the Ming Dynasty, was perhaps the most feared entity in Beijing. Ostensibly serving the emperor, its agents answered only to power. Their methods were brutal, their loyalty fluid, and their reach extended into every corner of palace life. These secret networks kept emperors informed, but they also created a culture of fear. Ministers watched their words. Servants held their breath. No one could be sure if a conversation would remain private or become tomorrow's evidence in a silent investigation. Even within the imperial family, trust was dangerous. Brothers plotted against one another, concubines formed alliances, and succession battles turned deadly. In this environment, information was often more valuable than inheritance. Whoever knew the right secret could control the outcome. The architecture aided the system. Narrow corridor hidden rooms and layered courtyards allowed secret movements and silent meetings. While majestic, the Forbidden City was also a maze, designed not only for ceremonial splendor, but also for surveillance and control. Over time, some of these covert activities were documented, not in official histories, but in private journals, banned books, and whispered legends. These sources give us glimpses into a hidden world where power was quiet, threats were invisible, and death could arrive without warning. The Forbidden City, for all its beauty, was also a palace of shadows. Behind the rituals and the robes, a quieter war was always underway, one waged in silence on parchment, and in the secret passageways that twisted beneath the emperor's feet. While the Forbidden City was undeniably a political center, it was also a spiritual realm, a place where symbols, omens, and divine order guided decisions. From the layout of the palace to the tiniest decorative motif, nearly every element served a deeper, often mystical, purpose. Beneath the surface of stone and gold, layers of cosmic significance shaped the world of emperors. The Forbidden City was built in alignment with cosmic principles rooted in Taoism, Confucianism, and Feng Shui. Its central axis, stretching from Meridian Gate to the Hall of Supreme Harmony, mirrored the path of heavenly order. The number of steps, tiles, and even roof ridges were determined by numerology. Yellow, the color of the emperor, dominated the roofs, symbolizing the earth element and centrality in Chinese cosmology. Red walls suggested protection and vitality. Every architectural detail projected balance between yin and yang, heaven and earth, a harmony essential to maintaining the mandate of heaven. Emperors were not just rulers, but semi-divine mediators. They held elaborate ceremonies in the Temple of Heaven, praying for good harvest and divine favor. The Forbidden City functioned as both a governmental headquarters and a sacred vessel, connecting the mortal realm with the spiritual. This sacred dimension gave rise to rituals that dictated everything: how officials bowed, how edicts were issued, even how the emperor moved. Ritual failure was more than a personal mistake. It could suggest cosmic imbalance and threaten the entire dynasty's legitimacy. Astrologers and court shamans held real influence. They studied stars, eclipses, and strange natural events, interpreting them as omens. A solar eclipse could lead to postponed decisions. An earthquake near the capital might be viewed as heaven's warning of imperial failure. Hidden deep in the palace were rooms for meditation, Taoist contemplation, and alchemical experiments. While rarely discussed, some emperors pursued immortality through secret elixirs and rituals, consulting monks and mystics behind closed doors. Their deaths, when sudden, often sparked rumors of magical miscalculations. These mystical pursuits were not always fringe matters. Court politics and spiritual beliefs overlapped frequently. Advisors accused rivals of summoning curses. Concubines consulted mediums. Some emperors issued edicts based on dreams or divine visions, claiming guidance from ancestral spirits. To visitors, the Forbidden City was a monument of control and discipline, but inside, the unseen world of spirits and signs held as much sway as scrolls and decrees. The grandeur was just one layer. Beneath it pulsed a spiritual rhythm, quiet but powerful. And so, the Forbidden City endured not only as a palace, but as a cosmic machine designed to maintain celestial harmony, channel divine will, and affirm that the Emperor's throne was not just earthly, but ordained by heaven itself. Behind the gleaming halls and ceremonial order of Forbidden City lay a labyrinth of surveillance, whispers, and secret agendas. Power in the imperial court was not only maintained through ritual and tradition, but through the careful observation and control of information. At the heart of this unseen world operated the emperor's eyes and ears, the eunuchs. Though originally servants with limited roles, eunuchs gradually gained immense power within the palace, trusted for their inability to father children, and thus seen as less likely to establish rival dynasties. Many emperors elevated them to key positions in administration and security. Their loyalty, however, often became a weapon. Eunuchs oversaw the internal mechanisms of the Forbidden City. They managed supplies, controlled access to the emperor, and monitored the movement of officials. Over time, some formed their own powerful networks, using their knowledge of court intrigues to manipulate appointments and policies. The most notorious example was during the late Ming Dynasty, when eunuchs like Wei Zhongxin wielded power so vast that ministers feared them more than the emperor himself. Secret police under eunuch command tortured dissenters, silenced critics, and created an atmosphere of paranoia within the palace. Beyond eunuchs, another layer of control involved the imperial bodyguard, who often acted as secret police. These elite guards, loyal only to the emperor, carried out covert missions, including spying on nobles and rooting out potential plots. They moved in silence, their presence rarely acknowledged openly. Inside the Forbidden City, few could be trusted entirely. Even concubines and royal tutors were watched. Spies were everywhere. Servants, guards, even entertainers could carry messages or plant false information. The system relied on silence, ambiguity, and suspicion. The emperor himself often remained isolated, and his decisions were shaped by filtered information. By the time reports reached him, they had passed through many hands. Powerful eunuchs and factions controlled the narrative, determining what was safe or politically convenient for him to hear. Rumors, once started, could ruin lives. A single accusation of corruption or conspiracy, even if unfounded, could lead to immediate arrest. Torture was common during investigations, and confessions were often extracted through fear or manipulation. This climate discouraged dissent and encouraged blind obedience. Despite its beauty and grandeur, the Forbidden City functioned like a gilded cage. Its inhabitants walked carefully, spoke cautiously, and trusted few. Politics was a delicate dance, and the cost of a single misstep could be exile, imprisonment, or execution. Power here was not just about who sat on the throne, but about who controlled access to the truth. And often, the truth was buried beneath layers of loyalty, fear, and silent betrayal. The Forbidden City was not only a palace. It was a stage of the invisible war of secrets. Even within the walls of the Forbidden City, mysteries endured that went beyond politics and power. Certain chambers remained sealed and used for centuries. Whispered rumors spoke of hidden tombs, cursed rooms, and forbidden texts. Stories dismissed as superstition, but often rooted in fragments of truth. One such mystery surrounded the Hall of Mental Cultivation. It served as a private residence for Qing emperors, but legends claimed a secret passage lay beneath its foundations. Supposedly, it connected to a buried vault containing records deemed too dangerous for even royal eyes. Though archaeologists have searched, no evidence of the passage has been officially revealed. This has only deepened the lore. Some believe the hidden chamber contains scrolls detailing the true origins of certain dynasties, or prophecies that foretold their downfall. Other mysteries focus on the emperor's treasures. Over the centuries, countless artifacts vanished, their disappearance unrecorded. Some suspect that panicked eunuchs or concubines buried valuables before fleeing persecution, hoping to return, but never did. One enduring mystery is the alleged ghost of a crying woman, said to wander the palace of heavenly purity. Some say she was a concubine wrongly executed after a false accusation. Her sobs, according to those who spent nights on watch, echo through empty courtyards during storms. Numerous emperors were deeply superstitious and relied on court astrologers and geomancers. Certain wings of the palace were abandoned entirely after bad omens or unexplained events occurred. These decisions, though rarely documented officially, revealed a deep influence of spiritual belief on court life. Even the city's architecture has secrets. Some doors are intentionally misaligned to confuse spirits. Tiles are arranged in sacred numerological patterns. Drainage systems form symbols to channel energy. Every element reflects beliefs long lost to common knowledge, but preserved in imperial blueprints. One lesser-known account tells of a hidden garden built exclusively for one empress. Lush and carefully concealed, it was supposedly only accessible through a revolving wall. After her death, the entrance was sealed, and the garden vanished from records. In the early 20th century, during the chaotic fall of the Qing dynasty, several Westerners gained limited access to parts of the Forbidden City. Some claim to have seen frescoes or rooms that no longer exist today. Whether these were exaggerations or discoveries now hidden, no one knows for certain. The Forbidden City remains a place of mystery not just because of its history, but because it resists complete understanding. Every door may conceal another layer of the past, and for every secret uncovered, another remains just beyond reach. While imperial rituals and architecture have been studied extensively, the Forbidden City also served as a stage for espionage, coded messages, and silent battles for influence. Beneath the grand ceremonies and formal titles, subtle rivalries shaped the fate of dynasties. Eunuchs, often dismissed as servants, became key players in palace intrigue. They controlled access to the emperor, relayed orders, and sometimes even altered imperial decrees. With loyalty shifting according to opportunity, they manipulated politics from behind the scenes. Some eunuchs created vast spy networks inside the palace. Servants, cooks, guards, anyone could be paid for information. These networks extended even to the emperor's own concubines, sowing mistrust and confusion in the harem. During the late Ming dynasty, one notorious figure named Wei Zhongxin practically ruled the empire. He placed allies in high court positions and punished those who opposed him. His downfall came only after the emperor's death, revealing how one man could bend an entire system. But espionage didn't stop at internal rivalries. Foreign diplomats and envoys were carefully monitored, their gifts inspected, their interpreters watched. The Forbidden City, though seemingly closed, was not immune to the currents of international politics. In turn, information flowed out as well. Rogue eunuchs or corrupt officials sold secrets to outsiders. Some scholars believe this contributed to the ease with which invading forces in the 19th century knew where to strike first. To combat this, emperors created private intelligence groups. Known only to the ruler and a few trusted advisors, these agents were trained in stealth, observation, and code-breaking. They reported directly to the throne. This hidden war of information left behind subtle traces. Coded poems, seemingly harmless letters, or altered artworks containing embedded messages. Decoding them today remains a challenge for historians. Even Forbidden City's layout was used to influence perception. Throne rooms and corridors were designed to impress or intimidate. Visitors were led through spaces that subtly conveyed power, order, and divine right. The deeper we look, the clearer it becomes that the Forbidden City was not only a palace, but also a labyrinth of silent battles. Secrets weren't just hidden. They were crafted, protected, and used as weapons in games of survival. Among the most mysterious components of the Forbidden City were its secret rooms and hidden passageways. While the public saw only vast courtyards and towering halls, deep within the structure lay a concealed infrastructure built for escape, eavesdropping, or silent movement. Some passages were designed for emperors to move unseen, especially during times of danger or unrest. These tunnels, cleverly disguised behind decorative walls or under floorboards, connected key areas like the throne room, harem, and private chambers. Not all secret areas were architectural. Certain rooms, accessible only to the emperor and a few trusted individuals, stored forbidden books, maps, or celestial records that could challenge official history or contain dangerous prophecies. Myths tell of hidden treasure rooms deep below the palace grounds. While many consider them legends, the lack of full archaeological excavation means the possibility remains. Rumors speak of jade statues, gold thrones, and ancient war relics hidden from public eyes. Whispers among old palace workers hinted at whispering walls, spaces built with perfect acoustics, so one could eavesdrop on conversations from rooms away. These features may have helped emperors or spies gather secrets without being seen. Some halls were intentionally designed to confuse. With near-identical layouts, they serve as a defense mechanism. Intruders or even rebellious guards could be easily lost, buying time for the emperor to flee or hide. During renovations in later dynasties, workers discovered bricked-off chambers with no records. Some were empty. Others held strange artifacts or personal effects from past rulers. No explanation was given for their closure. The imperial architects were sworn to secrecy, often working under intense supervision. Their knowledge of the hidden architecture was never documented in official plans, passed only through word of mouth, or eliminated entirely to protect state secrets. Some believe that supernatural beliefs influenced the placement of hidden rooms. Feng shui masters were consulted, and certain directions were considered auspicious for secrecy, while others were cursed or avoided altogether. Even today, restricted zones within the Forbidden City remain off-limits to the public and most researchers. Whether for preservation or secrecy, the full extent of its underground and hidden areas may never be fully known. One of the least explored but most crucial elements of the Forbidden City's mystery lies in its surveillance systems, subtle, often invisible structures of control designed to maintain imperial authority and personal security. This was a palace built not just for glory, but for total oversight. Guards stationed at strategic vantage points could oversee massive areas. Each gate, courtyard, and corridor was placed to maximize visibility. The emperor was often unseen, but rarely was anything out of his sight. Surveillance served not only security, but power. Eunuchs, deeply embedded within the court, became the emperor's eyes and ears. Their presence in both public ceremonies and private chambers turned them into walking recorders of palace life. Betrayals were reported in whispers, ambitions recorded in silence. Court ladies also played unexpected roles in the surveillance web. Some, particularly older concubines no longer favored by the emperor, became informants, using gossip and emotional insight as tools of intelligence. Behind the curtains of loyalty and ritual, there was a world of coded communication. Messages written in poetic riddles, painted symbols, or subtle clothing changes could carry deadly meaning within the court's labyrinth of alliances. Documents were tracked obsessively. Edicts, letters, and internal reports were copied by scribes sworn to secrecy. Even paper left on a desk too long could become dangerous in the wrong hands. So clerks learned to memorize and destroy. Mirrors and screens were not just decorative. They could be strategically placed to reflect or reveal. Some theorized they were arranged to observe without being noticed, allowing secret watchers to remain invisible to those being watched. The emperor himself often relied on disguise and deception. Accounts mention that he would occasionally dress as a servant or merchant and wander the outer city, gauging loyalty, measuring unrest, and observing reactions to his unseen presence. Punishment for betraying secrets or defying the surveillance network was swift and merciless. Those who leaked information or even failed to report rumors could disappear without trace. Another reason silence ruled the palace. Even in modern times, stories persist of archives hidden beneath the Forbidden City, rooms said to contain records of surveillance, secret trials, or confessions that never saw daylight. If they exist, they remain behind locked doors. The Forbidden City was not just a royal residence, but a political chessboard where every alliance, rivalry, and secret pact played out in plain sight. Understanding the complex web of court factions reveals why secrecy was vital and how trust was both currency and trap. Factions within the court often aligned around influential eunuchs, powerful consorts, or senior ministers. These groups maneuver for influence, using espionage, rumor, and even sabotage to advance their position under the ever-watchful emperor. The empress and favored concubines were not just ornamental, but players in this political drama. Their ability to bear heirs or sway the emperor's favor made them powerful, and they often gathered loyalists to protect their interests. Rivalries frequently turned deadly. Poisoning, false accusations, and forced exile were tools used by factions to eliminate threats quietly. The lack of public trials made it difficult for outsiders to know the true causes behind sudden disappearances. Officials' careers could rise or fall overnight, based on a single secret revealed or concealed. The emperor's favor was volatile, making loyalty fragile and creating a culture where survival meant navigating a labyrinth of shifting loyalties. Foreign envoys added another layer of intrigue. Their visits were carefully staged, but also filled with covert intelligence gathering. The court used these occasions to spread disinformation and gauge international power dynamics. Some factions believed in supernatural protection. Rituals, talismans, and secret prayers were woven into political strategy, hoping divine favor would shield their ambitions or curse their enemies. The emperor himself had to master this political maze, balancing suspicion and trust, punishing betrayal yet rewarding loyalty. His decisions shaped the fate of not only individuals but entire dynasties and the empire itself. Understanding the factions within the Forbidden City sheds light on why secrecy and hidden spaces were more than architectural features. They were essential tools of power, control, and survival in a world where information was the most dangerous weapon. As centuries passed, the Forbidden City has stood as a silent witness to imperial drama, yet many secrets remain buried beneath its walls. Today, historians and archaeologists continue to uncover clues, revealing new layers of mystery and insight into its past. Modern technology such as ground-penetrating radar and 3D scanning has helped locate hidden chambers and tunnels long forgotten, fueling speculation about undiscovered rooms once used for espionage or refuge during palace intrigues. Conservation efforts reveal changes in architecture that hint at shifting political priorities. Walls moved, windows blocked, and passages sealed, signs that the palace's design was continuously adapted to meet the needs of secrecy and control. Some scholars argue that the palace's layout encodes political messages or cosmological symbolism, reflecting ancient Chinese beliefs about harmony, power, and order. These ideas deepen the mystery of the Forbidden City's design. Oral histories and forgotten manuscripts occasionally surface, providing tantalizing glimpses of court life and espionage tactics, though verifying these accounts remains challenging given the palace's secretive nature. Tourists and locals alike remain fascinated by legends of hidden treasures, secret passages, and ghostly apparitions, stories that have become part of the cultural fabric surrounding the Forbidden City. The Forbidden City today is both a museum and a symbol, a reminder of imperial grandeur and the hidden histories that shaped a nation. It challenges us to look beyond the surface and consider what remains unseen. As research advances, we may one day unlock even more secrets of the Forbidden City, offering a deeper understanding of its mysteries and the human stories concealed within its walls.